Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Pickin and Puttin. That's Liberty Bill in the Liberty Bill studios and Dr. Z here in the Charlotte Metro studios. How you doing, Billy?
I'm doing great. Just trying to get to spring training and the NCAA tournament, man.
Yeah, I decided to name this episode the Caitlin Drives into March Madness 24 episode, and it's called the Range Goat episode for obvious reasons. I'll describe this later, but well, you got any shout outs you want to do? Anybody?
Yeah, Kaylin Clark shattered the NCAA women's record. Pistol Pete, you're up next, bud. And then also the Charlotte 49ers basketball team, their head coach Aaron Fern was just promoted from interim coach. People might not know this. Their other coach, Ron Sanchez, kind of left them hanging right before the season, went back to Virginia as an assistant. He's really stepped up, and the new coach, Aaron Fern, and turned the program around. And hopefully they can win their AAC tournament and get into the big dance.
Yeah, well, good for them because back in the day, we've lived there a long time. They were a really good basketball team, and the coach that was there ended up moving over and being an assistant at State after a while. Uh, I think actually with one of the old champion, who was it that was the coach from the '83 championship team? Wittenberg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was an assistant with him. Well, anyways, I got a couple shout outs, and one of them is a repeat there because I had Caitlin Clark too. Obviously, I named it the Caitlin Clark Driving into March Madness 24 episode. So I had Caitlin on there. Yeah, I was watching her highlights from even from high school. She's crazy good. She's just a good basketball player. But the other ones I had was I'm calling out to the range goats of Bubba Watson on the Live Golf Tour mainly because I watched it and this was a belated birthday present to myself, but I liked their logo and stuff, so I had to get it. And HV3, who lives in Charlotte, was a member of the Range Goats, but he got traded to the Four Aces, which is Phil Mickelson's team. So if I ever see him around, I'll say sorry, but I bought this hat because I like the logo.
How does that? Who's in charge of trading? How does that work?
Well, the captains.
Oh,
So
that's
I don't know how that works. I mean, Bubba Watson is the captain, and then they own their teams. And I guess there's a certain level, there's whatever 13 teams times four. What is that? 52 players. If you're not in the top 45 at the end of the year money winnings, then you can be cut off the tour, and they can make trades or they can get a new young guy. That's how it works, sort of. And you can trade somebody
pretty cool.
if
It's
you
something
yeah.
different.
Yeah, it's different. The other one was when we said Caitlin Clark, I also wanted to call out Sabrina Ionescu.
Yeah.
That was the best. That was the only part, as far as I'm concerned, of All Star Weekend that's worth repeating. But
Oh, I liked the skills competition. I really did. It was fun.
yeah, well, I like this guy says, "Hey, if you had the over and under of 400 points on the game, you might have lost your bet."
Yeah, I honestly stopped watching the game 20 years ago. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's going to have to go the way of the Pro Bowl.
yeah.
Baseball still manages to make it work because they do have an incentive, and there's not a risk as much of injury so much, I guess, and whatever. The other one I wanted to call out, and this was my last, was Gino Oriema because he broke Coach K's record, and he's six games behind the Stanford ladies coach. So. Um, but for all the world, his press conference sounded like he's looking to retire at the end of this year. I'm not sure.
He's not a cheery guy.
No, he's not. He's, you know, but he's a hell of a basketball coach. I'll say that. I'll give him that credit for that.
That he is.
Okay, so I got two trivia questions, and we'll come back to these later.
Okay.
Two. When was the first intercollegiate women's basketball game played? Hold on to that one because you ain't going to have no chance. And then the second one is who and when was the first women's dunk
Hmm.
in collegiate basketball?
I
wouldn't
think I
know
might
that.
have that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're going to Google it, but I
No,
would.
I think I got it. I
Oh,
mean, I'll tell it to you right now if you want.
no. We'll hold off on that. Okay, and so today's song, I even brought along a prop, people. Here's a kind of like a Grammy, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't get a Grammy, but that's what that looks like there.
sure looks like you did.
Yeah, well, maybe a young lady from the Kansas City Chiefs has about 100 of these.
She's got
But
a few to spare.
yeah. So the song I had was Dancing in the Moonlight because we're dancing into the tournament time. And it was written in 19, you probably don't even know this song. Dancing in the
Oh yeah,
Moonlight.
Neil Diamond.
Okay. Well, I don't, well, that's not who sang it, but he might have sung, everybody sang it. But it was written in 1970 by a guy named Sherman Kelly, and it was performed by his band called the Bofalongos. And then in 1972, it was a one-hit wonder by a group called King Harvest, and it got as high as number 5 in Canada and number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now here's one I got for you because I like this one. Just to carry this a little bit further, here are the top one-hit wonders of all time. Macarena, 96. Tainted Love in 1982. Come On Eileen in 82. I don't know. I'm Too Sexy, 91.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Bad music in the 90s.
Mickey in 82 and Who Let the Dogs Out in 2000. But here's your other, this is the 21st century. The richest grossing one hit wonder of all time. Do you know what it was? As soon as I tell you, you'll laugh.
In the 21st century?
Yeah, in this century.
Baby Shark.
Oh, that's a good guess. It was Gangnam Style.
Oh yeah.
Remember that thing with it was a South, yeah, the Korean. It's
I never get
2012.
these.
Yeah, well, I'd have never gotten that one
Even
either.
when these things are hot, I don't understand.
Well, I think Baby Shark's pretty good.
Yeah.
And Macarena, yeah, Baby
Well,
Shark.
that one had a dance to it. You do this, you do that, you know.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, I can do that.
Uh,
Okay. Well, where do you want to go? What do you want to talk about? We'll come. Don't let me forget. We'll come back to the trivia questions and the answers to those later.
yeah, the Caitlin Clark thing, it's here's a take for you. I'm not comparing her to Michael Jordan at all, but I think if you took a graph and if you took the bottom axis and you put years, and on the vertical axis, if you put however you want to measure popularity of the sport, TV ratings, ticket prices, values of the franchises, whatever you want to do, how popular is the sport? If you look at men's basketball, I think you'll see a pretty big spike in the late 80s through the late 90s, thanks to Michael Jordan. And I think history will tell you when you look at
Well,
women's basketball.
and Bird Magic.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Like, you can go all the way back in the day, Wilt, Elgin Baylor, like those guys kind of put it on the map. Bird and Magic kind of got us out of where the NBA Finals was on tape record,
Right.
you know. But I think if you that vertical spike in the graph, I think you can point to Michael Jordan's career.
Right.
And again, for women, you can look at UConn, Pat Summitt, Brittany Griner. There's been a lot of people that have grown the game, but when you look at that big spike down the road, I think they're going to say it was the Caitlin Clark era that really did it.
There's no question. I mean, if you want to put her in stock terms, she's the Nvidia of stock. I mean, she is taking. There's no question that she's brought women's basketball onto another level, and she's done it with class, and she's just fun to watch. It's like I heard one of the NBA play-by-play announcers on ESPN, and he said, you know, if I gave you the top 5 people I would turn on the television to watch play basketball, and I'm talking about men's and women's, she's one of my top 5. You know, he had Michael Jordan, you know, Steph.
Yeah, Steph can't pass like her though.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you know, he had LeBron. I mean, he had people, but he put her right there. He said she just fun to watch. I mean, the fact that she can step over the logo and let her rip, you know, she's really cool to watch. And she
And I thought it was
plays all around basketball.
yeah, she had 17 assists when she set the record. And last Sunday, they were at Nebraska. They actually lost that game. And she could have set the record in that game, but she got shut out in the fourth quarter. The coach lost her cool and kind of stormed out of a press conference. So it looked like the pressure was kind of getting to them. So
Yeah.
then to follow that performance up Wednesday night at home against Michigan for Caitlin to score the first 8 points of the game
Oh, when
to
she
set
hit.
the record,
Oh,
and then
when.
proceed to set the scoring record in a 40-year-old arena, men or women, and drop 20 assists. Woo!
Oh, well,
That's how you come back from a little adversity.
but the shot she hit it on was,
Yeah.
3 steps over the mid-court line. Boom. So yeah, there's one other lady whose record was not recognized from the early 80s before they had NCAA women's basketball. So
Oh,
she has,
really?
yes, there's one other that has more points, but she should pass her. I want to say she was another 100 and some points behind that lady. I can't remember her name. I should have given her credit, but it was like 78 to 80. And I don't remember when women's basketball, it started with Tennessee took off, but it started where it was really growing was in Louisiana. The lady,
Really?
yeah, the lady texters, they were called. I'm trying to figure, I can't remember if that's Louisiana Tech, I guess. I don't know if that's in Shreveport or where it is. Anyways, folks, if you're down that way and you listen, you can let us know. But um, yeah, so it's a really cool record, and you're right. I think she will look back on it because she interests a whole generation of young girls and
Yep.
boys and boys. I mean, she's um, it's like what we were just talking about. She is to women's basketball as Taylor Swift is to the Kansas City Chiefs. And
Yep.
she was worth, they said, 350 million to the Chiefs franchise. So
And,
get
and
I heard a
people don't
guy
realize,
I heard a guy talk about it. He says, get off her case, you NFL guys that are complaining about her being on TV all the time. She brought in a lot. She was worth her weight in gold to the NFL and viewership. And so I go, yeah, she didn't bother me. I didn't care. I thought it was fun. So,
and people might not realize this. These ladies are under a lot of pressure. It's kind of like the 90s Bulls. They're having to sneak into the back door of a hotel. They need a police escort through a side door at the arena. She's getting followed and photographed everywhere she goes and still maintaining her composure. So I fully expect her to go pro. This is her senior year. I don't see her using COVID years like some of these other folks are using. I think she'll be the first pick in the draft. She'll go to Indianapolis. That's a great market for her. That's a basketball market.
oh my
And she'll
God,
continue to elevate this game.
think about going to Indiana. I mean, you and I
The
both
perfect
know
spot for her.
as Midwest boys, that's the hotbed to this day. Go back to the movie Hoosiers, folks, but it's still
Yep.
that way.
It's
You
the
know,
perfect spot for her because she's a
They-
Midwest girl. And
yeah,
I'll admit, I watched a lot more Iowa women's basketball than I have the men's team. Now, if the men's team was going to be in the tournament, that might
yeah.
not be the case, but that is the reality.
Oh,
And at this point, the Iowa women's team is bringing in more revenue
yeah.
than the men's team.
That
So,
that Nebraska women's volleyball.
yep, those are the
Yeah,
big ones.
yeah, those are big ones. Well, that's a crazy thing. Well, here let's switch off and go off. I know we'll go off on this one, but so it's late April and you're in the NFL draft. And of course your team is the Bears.
Yeah, we run the draft. The draft
But
runs through Chicago. Thanks,
yeah,
Panthers.
but I just I and anybody out there you can have I've seen other professional scouts have this opinion. I am I am not enamored with the Heisman Trophy quarterback from Southern Cal. I know he'll be a top 5 draft pick, but he wouldn't be my number 1 pick. Um, I think the team that stands to have the most benefit out of all this is going to be they're Commanders.
Yeah,
Because
they're in a good spot because they
they're
can't lose. They get one of the two guys.
they're in a good spot, and I still, to me, when I grew up, no quarterback broke into the starting role until his 5th year, and and they have the same. The deal is they got these rookie contracts, so that allows them a fifth year if they want it for on the cheap, like Brock Purdy. They're paying him minimum wage. Well, at some point, if they get back there again next year, they're going to have to sign him. But that being said, I think Justin Fields is on the up and up. Now, whether you keep Tua, I don't know. He's a fifth year guy too, but this will be Justin's fourth year, right?
Yeah, and
Justin,
Justin got totally screwed, by the way, because his first year was a lame duck head coach who should have been fired before he was
right.
drafted. His second year, they were tanking for the #1 pick. Then last year, they tried to make him into a pocket passer, and it didn't work. So he's never had a
Well,
fair shot, but
and
timing's everything in life, and they have the #1 pick with two generational QB prospects, so they
well,
got to
and
make a
see,
move.
but that's the thing. That's the thing. It'll be fun to look back on this quarterback class because you got about five guys. Penix and Bo Nix, and there are a whole bunch of guys. The guy kid from Michigan, down the way.
Jaden Daniels will
And
be probably be the
you
third
just,
one.
yeah, and you just don't know. One of those from down there may be a Brock Purdy type, even though it's a first round pick. But in response to that, that's the problem I have. Take Sam Howell at Washington. So they come in and he doesn't play, then he gets thrown in there. Their line sucks. So now they're going out and saying they need another quarterback. They get a new coach, a new system, and that's fine if they draft another quarterback, but I think he'll end up a start. He'll be kind of like uh, when they finally recognize the kid who's in, the quarterback who's now 36, but he's in Minnesota. Um, uh,
No, Cousins.
yeah, Kirk Cousins. When he was first out, everybody said, "Oh, he's never going to be. He's just that." Well, he ended up being a pretty good quarterback. And so they don't. For me personally, this is just it. I just would love to see, and maybe they'll do this. I would like to see the Bears trade down and get some more first round picks and get Marvin Harrison and keep Fields. That's just me because you kept the coach, like you said. After all this, you kept the
Yeah,
coach. Well,
that's the part I have. Well, the reality is and that's the game theory around this is fascinating because there's no clear cut definitive, this is the path. There's a lot of valid paths here.
right,
But I just know, and so Chicago media and national media is milking Fields versus Caleb Williams for content.
right,
But I know Brad Biggs, who's the most plugged in beat writer for the Bears, for the Tribune for over 30 years, has been strong since about mid-season that they're going to move on from Fields. And he has been extremely clear that they're going to move on from Fields. And then the other piece of data is the betting markets that show Caleb Williams as the clear favorite to be #1. So that tells me they're definitely going to move on from Fields. And as of today, they're going to draft Caleb Williams. However, I agree with you. I would rather trade. We don't know. Caleb Williams and Drake May are similarly graded prospects. So why not trade down to 2, take whichever one Washington doesn't take, and Washington might be interested in Caleb Williams. He's from DC, and Washington just hired Cliff Kingsbury, who
yeah, the
coached him
quarter,
at USC.
right.
So I'm not completely writing that off. And the other thing I would say that I think I love Marvin Harrison Jr. His floor is a 5-time Pro Bowl NFL receiver. He is a no-brainer, going to be good.
Yeah,
But I will say the hype train has gotten a little bit off the tracks because that specific narrative that you just mentioned has really kind of made its way through the internet. The gap between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors in LSU and Rome Odunze in Washington is a lot less than the gap from Drake May and Caleb Williams to all the other quarterbacks. So I think the Bears would, and I'll also throw this guy out there, Brock Bowers, the tight end at Georgia. I mean, to me, my dream scenario is you trade down to 2, you get Drake May, you take Brock Bowers at 9. Now you got Brock Bowers and Cole Kmet. You got 2 tight ends. We know how much rookies love tight ends. You draft Tez Walker in the second round with the pick that you traded to Pittsburgh because they're going to get Justin Fields in this scenario. So now you've got DJ Moore, you got Drake May's college receiver, you got 2 tight ends, and you run the ball. and you ease them into it. That's my dream scenario. It's not going to happen, but I've
Well,
dreamed it
I
up.
mean, yeah, the people that are going to trade or go for a quarterback are Pittsburgh and Atlanta, and um,
And the Raiders won't get Fields because the Raiders hired Luke Getsy, who was the Bears offensive coordinator, and him and Fields clashed. So it really is Pittsburgh or Atlanta, and there's probably
well,
a few others, but it's really those two.
I'll
Maybe
throw that.
Seattle.
I'll throw this out and offer my prediction, and maybe right or wrong, we can go back a year from now and look. But if the Bears take Caleb Williams #1 and drop Fields, they're backing up the truck another 3 years of mediocrity. I'm sorry, the coach will get fired after 1 year, and
Yeah, that's the problem.
it'll be 2026, and you'll still suck.
Yeah, and
So
then we'll be hopefully right back up there and taking Arch Manning.
yeah, I mean you the the fact that people want to put it on a quarterback to the best thing that can happen to a quarterback is Brock Purdy. The best thing that happened, because I'll give you the other example. Is so how good is the kid in Green Bay?
He looks
See,
pretty good.
he looks pretty good, but
And I coming out of the draft,
he
like
didn't
no
play
one
for
liked him.
three. Well, they didn't play for 3 years or 4 years, but he learned the system and the coaching staff didn't turn over. So if they believed in his talent, I think he's the real deal now. But he's had time to equilibrate. So I don't know.
Well, I'd be fine if you bring in a Jameis Winston and have him start the first 8 games and then put in Drake May or Caleb Williams. Sure.
so
That
what are
makes
you
all the
gonna
sense in the world.
so what are you gonna do with a Denver guy? I
Oh,
they talk about him going to Pittsburgh, and I'm going. Uh, I'm not.
Vegas. Vegas. That was originally on his list of teams that Russell Wilson wanted to get traded to. I could
Vegas.
see Vegas. They need a quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
That's within the division, though.
we'll see though. It'll be fun. It'll this for the
I'll
first.
be if Fields goes to Pittsburgh, boy, I'll be cheering for him. I think that would be a great fit for him.
I think
Maybe Mike Tomlin would get out of the first round for the first
I
time in
think that
10
would be a
years.
great fit. And here's the other one, like you said, when we talk about Marvin Harrison, but the little hidden gem, and I've seen mock drafts where he goes at the end of the first round as Tez Walker. Um,
Yeah,
and I can't remember to who. It might have. Oh, I'll tell you who. It was to Kansas City. Can
that
you
would make a
imagine
lot of
Tez
sense.
Walker in Kansas City? I mean, you get him on a rookie contract. It's a first round, but if they got him as a 30th pick, uh, he has the capability to be, he's a speedster and all that crap. I mean, he'd fit
He's
right in.
big too.
Oh yeah, that would be the best thing that happened to that kid. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good. Everybody's been talking about
receivers,
Marvin and those other two, but yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
yeah.
So
Well, it's like if we look behind us at that stadium there, and I heard these guys talking about, on our local sports talk about the Panthers need to pick up, this
oh, DK Metcalf, that's the
they
rumors. They love that right now.
what the Panthers need. If I was a general manager of a pro football team, what am I going to start with? Yes, you got to have a quarterback, but I'm going line, 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 line. And that's what I'm getting. I'm getting my offensive line first, my defensive line second. The problem is you've got the money. But see, when you get real success like they have in Kansas City, then they just go to Mahomes and say, "Hey, let's restructure you to 38 million a year, and we'll give you a bonus of 15 million this year, and then that way we can keep the cornerback and we can keep the left tackle or the defensive tackle, Chris Jones, you know,
Yep.
and you watch, that's what they'll do. They'll keep Chris Jones, but they'll at the top, they'll redo because Mahomes is signed for the rest of his life. And, he's making 100 million a year through all of his endeavors. So he's willing to give up restructuring, so.
Yeah, they can kick that. And to your point earlier, how everybody tries to make this into a quarterback thing, the Chiefs and the Bills are a great example where everybody wants to say like Pat Mahomes owns Josh Allen or whatever. I think they're pretty comparable. It's the defense for the Chiefs that's a lot better than the defense for the Bills. And why is that? Because they've drafted them. Whereas the Bills have tried to put patchwork with veteran free agents. Free agents get old. Guys you draft get better. And to your point, the Chiefs have clearly figured out how they can find cornerbacks in round 2, round 3, round 4, plug them into Spags' system, and boom, they can go.
Here's one I forgot to throw out that we should throw out, especially from the local market, is I watched on Monday because, well, a lot of people were off, but I was off. I'm always off. But I watched the Daytona 500, and the kid William Byron was from up the street that won that, and it was really fun to see because he's very intelligent. He was an excellent interview and all that, and he's one of those kids that fell in love with Jimmy Johnson coming along when he was winning all these championships. And he learned to play by playing the video game
I
on
heard that.
his computer. And then he was one of those kids you see that got all the real thing in his bedroom where you sat there in a real thing, and he drove all the tracks. And it's like that movie about the guy who was the F1 racer who all he'd done is drive computers, but he could race the tracks. And
Gran Turismo.
that's what this kid did, and he's the real deal. He's a superstar coming up for, and I think NASCAR's coming back. They're figuring out their base again. So I think they're kind of coming back to their roots and their marketing. That's a total different thing from professional golf who's got a screw loose. Doing this. I laugh about the guys on the Golf Channel, and I'm off on another tangent, but the Golf Channel talking about all these guys. Well, how would they get back to the PGA Tour? They don't want to come back to the PGA Tour. Who are you kidding, guys? It's not all money. The only thing that they don't have with world ranking points would be access to the majors. And the difference with the majors is every major is an independent contractor. The Masters can invite Bill and Rick to play if they want. The PGA of America is different from the PGA Tour. The British Open the Royal Nation is totally apart from the tour. And which one am I missing? Anyways, they're all the PGA, the US Open is run by the USGA. So they're all separate. So, for example, a lot of these guys that went over to live have won recent majors. So, for example, if you won the Masters, you can play in that for life.
Yeah.
So John Rahm, Dustin Johnson, they're in that for life. And then the PGA and the Open give you 5 years. So I think all the smoke will clear on that within a couple of years, but it's just hard to listen to the newscasters on the Golf Channel who are. It's kind of like
Isn't that 100% owned by the PGA?
I don't know who it's owned by anymore because it was owned by NBC, and then who knows who owns it. So
But that's like when you're watching the NFL Network. I wouldn't expect some objective journalism around.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. There's no. The most interesting part is they've pulled back on the one guy who used to play the tour, and he got on there and he was so voraciously anti-live that you could it's kind of like when ESPN started to get political. If I'm watching the Golf Channel or I'm watching ESPN, I'm glad you have political views, but I don't want to hear them. I want you to tell me about the game.
There's other channels for that.
Yeah, I want to tell me about the fourth quarter of the game. Damn it, I don't want to hear about all this stuff. So
and the PGA enjoyed 130 years of evading taxes and playing this independent contractor because of the setup of all these little entities. Well, you know what? Now that's come home to roost. That's how life works. You enjoyed it, but now it's screwing you over. But you could have formed a for-profit league and gotten all this under control. You could have partnered with the Saudis. You didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's like they all have that thing. It's like baseball with the antitrust kind of stuff.
That's all gonna come crumbling down.
Yeah. So
yeah, it should, by the way. It's bogus. If someone wants to start another professional baseball league, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see how the Rock's UFL does this year. He got.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
we have that. We have the XFL. We got a couple of them, right?
Well, they merged them.
Oh, so we got one of them.
Yeah. So the XFL and the USFL merged to call the UFL.
Okay.
So see, he got the one on the cheap for $15 million, which was on the cheap because he got The Rock. When he bought it, he got the rights to all of this, all the branding, all the logos, all the team stuff that way. And I don't know, who knows how many teams they had, but they like 8 or something.
You know what we really need for that sport? We need to develop quarterbacks. I'm going to give you a little bit of a list here. Here are some guys that started NFL games in week 18. Now, granted, some of these teams, didn't have anything to play for playoffs, but there's a lot of injuries now at quarterback.
Right.
Mason Rudolph, Tyler Huntley, Gardner Minshew, Trevor Simeon, Bailey Zappi, Jeff Driscoll, Jake Browning, Nick Mullins, Jarrett Stidham, Tyrod Taylor, Easton Stick, Sam Darnold. Like we definitely have a need for more talented quarterbacks in the NFL. So hopefully that league helps that.
Well, you made a good point. I mean, the deal there is the best gig in professional sports is to be a 8 to 12 million a year backup quarterback.
Chase Daniel, do you remember him? He was with Kansas City for a while with the Bears. He made like 100 million in career earnings.
How about the guy with the beard, Harvard grad?
Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic, yeah. Fitzmagic. He actually had to play quite a bit.
Yeah, but the bet, yeah, he played everywhere he went, and he was pretty good. But think about it. Cleveland brought a guy out of his living room. So, but now he
they made the playoff.
Yeah, well, they're going to re-sign him. I think they that will go down as the Herschel Walker trade to Minnesota with the Cowboys. I think he's a total bust and got all that.
Deshaun Watson, yeah. Oh. And by the way, our boy here was lining up to do that same trade.
Oh, I'm glad he didn't, because
it could be even worse.
1, he's injured, and 2, I think he's just got a lot of problems. Who knows? But he's probably never going to play worth a hoot. So
Yeah, that Flacco thing is always going to scar me because one of the games he came back was against the Bears. So I keep telling my buddies, why are you keeping this coach? His defense blew a lead to Joe Flacco right off the couch. What are we doing?
There's something.
But Joe Flacco should not have won Comeback Player of the Year. Damar Hamlin literally came back from near death. That should have been the Comeback Player of the Year.
Well, that's exactly right. The fun thing about that was, if you think about it from a professional or any standpoint, Flacco was able to come back and play so well because no pressure.
He had nothing to lose, right?
He got nothing to lose. If he came in and he sucked, well, then they'd go, well, So I think they're looking to sign him for about 8 to 10 million for a 1-year contract with incentives. So he'll take that in a heartbeat, So
how do you think Harbaugh is going to do here with Herbert? That's a tough division. He's got Mahomes and Reed in that division.
I think right off the bat, just because of right off the bat, they'll be better from his system and stuff. Now, he's got a quarterback, so, and I really don't know their receiving core and all that.
Yeah, they got a lot of work to do, but they got the quarterback, and he had Alex Smith, he had Kaepernick, but he never had this.
So. Well, you just don't know when they go pro to college, college to pro. One guy's had success doing that, and that was him, and also Southern Cal and Seattle.
Yep.
I actually thought he might pop back up in at UCLA or something, Pete Carroll. But I think now these guys look and say, I'm 70 years old. Do I want to come back to NIL and the portal? And I go, nah. So I think that's a different world altogether. So.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Well, we'll go back to the trivia. Can you tell me? I know you don't know this one unless you cheated. The first intercollegiate women's basketball game.
Yeah, it was Princeton and Harvard, 1967.
That's actually pretty good because it's always schools of that ilk. But it was April 4th, 1896. Cal against Stanford, and it was a
was the band on the field?
well, they played 9-on-9 at that time. You know, back then that was where they stayed on one side of the court. When women's basketball first started, believe it or not, I'm thinking even I was around. They would play. Everybody was on the court, and it was kind of like soccer. They had a defensive end and an offensive end, and you kind of
That's
stayed.
interesting.
Yeah, but in the final score of that game, it was an offensive juggernaut. Stanford won 2-1.
So they got up by 1 and ran the 4 corners.
Yeah, then they ran the 4. They went like that. Dean Smith, that's where he learned to do that. And then the other one was, this was interesting because I wouldn't have known her name, but I will remember it. The first women's dunk.
Not Brittany Griner?
No, it was she played for West Virginia between 1982 and 1986, and her name was Georgianne Wells.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now you know, Georgianne. Don't forget
And
her.
you know, there was no WNBA back then, so maybe she would have been a superstar.
Well, there wasn't any. Yeah, she might have been, because there was no NCAA women's basketball didn't start till the early 80s, where they had women's basketball collegiate, but it wasn't recognized as a sport on its own at the collegiate level. I mean, there were schools played it, but they didn't. The NCAA didn't have it.
Yeah, they didn't have like the tournament and all that.
Yeah. So who knows? Well, that was a lot of fun. I got my new prop for next time when we discuss music for all you people there. There's my Grammy. Bill and I got that for our song repertoire.
King Harvest, Dancing in the Moonlight. I won't forget
King
that.
Harvest, Dancing in 1972, one-hit wonder, and the #1 hit of all time was Gangnam Style. Grossing one-hit wonder. When I think of one-hit wonders, I'm always thinking of the Oneaters. Tom Hanks and the Oneaters.
Great movie.
Great movie. The Wonders.
Shades.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Okay, everybody. That's this week's episode of Pickin and Puttin. We'll see you again the next time Billy and I get together. Be good, peace, and all that stuff.
Happy spring. Thanks, everybody.
And Bubba, go Range Goats, man.
I like that.
Okay, we'll see you.